Please stop biting my hand. All right, good evening, everyone. I am the Mad Computer Scientist. On this channel, at least on YouTube, I discuss math, computer science, and technology topics that are of interest to me. On Friday nights, I do something a little bit different. On Friday nights, I break down videos that I feel have bad logical arguments or are just worthy of mockery. If you want to watch this on YouTube, go over to Mad Computer Scientist on YouTube. But if you want to continue on Clapper, you can leave comments there. You just won't get the full experience. We're going to start in on a podcast called, let's see, what is it called? Proving the Simulation Theory, DMT, Aliens, and the Nature of Reality. For some reason, looking at my YouTube comments lately, a lot of my Terrence Howard videos seem to be in the news again, and I am not sure why. Or rather, my videos aren't in the news, Terrence Howard is. Now, for those of you who don't know, Terrence Howard has been kind of a boon as well as a bane to my YouTube channel, because Terrence Howard has some rather interesting ideas about math, including his most famous pronouncement that 1 times 1 equals 2. A number of mathematicians broke his ideas down, which he aired on the Joe Rogan podcast, and he even shared a stunning proof that 1 times 1 equals 2 on the AB series The View, which honestly looked like a balloon animal. For the most part, he comes up every now and again. He does tend to be a source of good views. I'd rather leave him alone, but let's see if this is why he came back into my purview. And if you want to read his book where he expounds his theories about math, science, and other things, you can find it on his website, TCOTLC.com, where you can download the philosophical banger 1 times 1 equals 2 by Terrence Howard, where he contains many bad math proofs, and he lets us know that he could not pass an elementary math school course. With that being said, let's get into the video. I will be having sound going through the regular microphone rather than my earbuds, simply because I don't really have a choice tonight. My earbuds are not working, so hopefully this will not interrupt the Clapper people. And the Clapper people need to be sure they're not asking me questions they shouldn't be.
Just to really ramp up.
And so I will be keeping an eye on my YouTube chat as well.
As a result of some of this stuff, and that put a lot of strain on him. On the way back, he started to crash, and so he would go into the hospital, and his heartbeat would get down to 12, and so he was crossing over. His story, they wanted to make documentaries just about that portion of his life.
We are about 28 minutes in, where they're going to start mentioning what I'm interested in this particular podcast.
But what has happened is that if you were combine somebody with an NDE with this point of gnosis that we can get with DMT, it is supercharged. And so now that we have all of these equations, if every one of them could be a Nobel Prize. The
1 times 1 equals 2 could be a Nobel Prize. I mean, I know you're about to say Terrence Howard, but that doesn't make much sense because that is not a Nobel Prize winning equation.
Is some of the most significant information about how our universe,
nor is it going to win the Millennium Prize,
works, and how these technologies that be used to benefit us as a civilization has been, for whatever reason, has been given through him. And so at that point in time, I was getting visions that I needed to get my information to Terrence Howard.
You needed to get your information to Terrence Howard. Oh, this is going to be good.
Which was really interesting. Around that time, he had just been on Joe Rogan. There were some things that were happening to him on that podcast that we recognized. If you're not familiar with it, if you watch it, in the beginning, they have a lot of
I watched the Joe Rogan podcast with Terrence Howard too. And as much as I hate to say it, what I saw of him on that podcast indicated a mental health episode.
Issues. The microphones or computers are not working properly. And they were saying
that's because he didn't know how to use them on the Joe Rogan podcast. It had nothing to do with any sort of interference.
Oh, maybe the government's watching us, but we saw that.
Oh my gosh. The government was not watching Terrence Howard on the Joe Rogan podcast either. He just forgot to turn off his screen timeout. That is all that was.
As a trigger, because we realized that once you hit that point of gnosis, a lot of electrical interference starts to follow you. We've been able to replicate and induce this in many of my friends. And
All right, sorry. Someone, I shouldn't have taken the pause. Someone's asking me a question
very frustrated
that I needed to respond to.
Or they can't turn their electrical equipment on.
Since you've just mentioned that, yours has just started to freeze a little bit on and off.
That happens. So what happens when you do this?
So apparently this is some sort of new age podcast where they're focusing on UFOs.
Emitting an electromagnetic frequency that really disrupts technology.
Let's see. Do we have anyone in
and so like if you
right now?
I've made a bunch of videos about this stuff on TikTok. And
Player Knockout is a weird.
It's to the point to where it even can control. Like if I start to say things that I'm not supposed to say yet, it will completely cut my audio off. If I'm playing my PlayStation and I'm realizing that I'm spending too much time doing that and I need to go focus back on this journey that I'm on, it will, no joke, turn my PlayStation off, completely shut it off. And so we were trying to navigate, like my life completely shifted after that moment, and it shifts everybody's after that moment happens. And so my wife had a couple of years before that, I got through yoga teacher training. And I wasn't spiritual at all. Before that moment, I was completely agnostic. I had grown up in a strong Christian family.
I don't really care about your background as a yoga teacher or your religious background here. This is not that type of podcast. It's as relevant as me being an ex-Mormon.
And I just kind of studied my way away from it.
But tell me more about why you felt your visions told you needed to get this technology to Terrence Howard. I want to hear more about that guy.
But with all of this stuff that happened, it felt very spiritual. And I subscribed to that Gaia channel years ago and trying to understand some of
the Gaia channel is a new age channel that has similar content to what these guys have.
Concepts that my wife was learning, but it was too much woo for me. Like it was.
And Terrence Howard wasn't. How was Terrence Howard not too much woo for you? The guy literally thinks Blender is simulation software.
It's just too far out there. There's some of that stuff on that channel is just really bizarre. And so
at least on that, we agree from what I know of the Gaia YouTube channel.
I didn't really mess with it, but I was like, all this is happening. Let's give this a shot. Let's kind of resubscribe. And so ever since that crown chakra and that being entered my body, I can feel all of my chakras all the time. And on this journey, if I have a direction or a choice to make, I can think about one or the other, and I'll start getting this surge of energy in one of my chakras. And it's usually the solar plexus. And so I was just messing around on the.
And when can you actually make the energy blast the Dragon Bee? Great. I'm clearly not a Dragon Ball Z fan because I can't remember the name, but I think it's the Kamehameha. All right, I'm not even going to try. I can't pronounce it. But the energy blast that one of the characters does. That has some weird long syllable in front of it.
On that channel, I started going through the list of shows. And I hit one called Divine Science, and I got an energy surge. I was like, okay, well,
so you got an energy surge when you hit a YouTube channel. I'm thinking you might have some faulty wiring there, guy.
Let's explore this. So I go episode to episode, and I get to episode 5, and I get another surge, and it just happens to.
Seriously, I think your wiring might be faulty on your equipment. Please fix it. Get some electrical tape, or go and get new equipment. Maybe you need a new mouse or keyboard.
Be on DMT. And
because the only energy surge you should be getting from your computer is probably electronic in nature or sometimes heat.
Okay, so let's watch it. And so it starts out with Paul Hynek, who is the son of Jayon Hynek with Project Blue Book. He's also the head of Mensa. He's a professor at Pepperdine, and he's also the CFO of the Monroe Institute. But every single.
I suspect absolutely none of those things are true, but I'm not going to bother to look them up.
They're making the connection between the DMT space and the UAP connection. And so I have had all of this happen to us. I reached out to him. I sent Paul an email. I said, hey, while things are happening, I think I can help you make this connection. And even in that episode, there's a gentleman in there, Daniel McQueen, who runs a DMT and psychedelic treatment center in Boulder, Colorado.
Oh, you're telling me you were high while doing this. Why didn't you start with that?
Made the comment that for this to be able.
Actually, I don't know. Does DMT get you high, anyone in chat? I think DMT might just be a hallucinogen that doesn't really get you high, like LSD.
To prove that this is real, we're going to need something like math that doesn't exist to come through, something along those lines.
Well, I can say Terrence Howard will give you math that doesn't exist.
It's like,
but the problem with coming up with math that doesn't exist yet is you want to make sure it's correct and useful. And nothing I've seen from Terrence Howard is correct or useful. Well, that's not entirely true. His square root of 2 loop is something the square root of 2 will do if you cube it and then divide it by 2. But he doesn't understand that all numbers greater than 0 will do that. Because he doesn't understand the laws of exponents.
We have that. We absolutely have that. And so after talking with Paul, he invites us out to LA where he lives. And so while we're out there, we get to spend a few days with him. He is a DMT expert as well. He speaks about those.
Okay, you can actually be a legitimate DMT and mushroom expert.
Connections. And
however, I don't think this person means he's a guy who studies DMT.
Obviously, the UAP connections
in an academic sense.
Huge in his family. And so we're out there. We also had some time to film. They're filming the DMT laser experiment documentary. So we got to film for that. And it's kind of funny. We're filming for that. And my colleague and I kind of going back.
Did I just hear the phrase DMT laser experiment? I mean, that sounds kind of awesome, to be honest. I don't know what it would involve, but I really want to see it.
Been talking on in this chair for like an hour and a half, and then all of a sudden a hardwired mic just shuts off. And I just kind of look at my friend, and I just kind of smiled, and he smiled at me, and I was like, I think it's your turn.
Great. So not knowing how to use technology means they are out to get you? Is that how that works? Because that's what Howard was doing on the Joe Rogan podcast when he was on too.
And as soon as he sits down, the mic comes back on. It's really weird how this.
Do you know this laser experiment? You need to be on DMT. Is there a way that you can get this across as evidence without people that are on DMT? Is there a way to document?
Yeah, I will get there. We're working on that right now.
And what other drugs does it take?
Sorry, but just jump in. You're saying that.
By the way, if anyone like working for Clapper does like the new software development and is listening, please find some way to let me like connect streams from apps like StreamYard to this, because it would make things like this so much easier.
The amount of DMT experiences that you had is now starting to sort of mess with electronics. Is that right? Is that what you're trying to say? Or, you know, it sort of cuts power out?
So the DMT does not.
All right. This might actually be a somewhat real phenomenon that I know some people experience. Like some people cannot wear certain types of watches because of their body's magnetic field. But however, I think he's just making this up.
Allow that. What is the shift in how we connect with consciousness, and that moment has allowed us to, for whatever reason, causes electrical interference. It's electromagnetism.
Yeah, so is it a case of sort of
our shift in consciousness causes electromagnetic interference? I think I heard that on Spirit Science.
So for instance,
it wasn't true there either.
You could be doing something and then they won't.
Sorry, I am trying very hard to understand what they're getting at, and I'm kind of lost on this one.
Want you to maybe see something or pass a message on.
And it's not even because it's hard to understand, it's because they don't seem to have any sort of connection between their ideas.
And then you have that electrical interference.
No, it seems there could be a correlation there, but
well, as we know, correlation equals causation.
For the most part, it just seems to be a distortion that
every statistics professor everywhere will tell you that
is being emitted from us as a result of this ability. And so, Paul.
So if you take DMT enough, you gain an ability that gives you an electromagnetic interference. I think I've seen this Marvel movie. It didn't end well.
Paul has a lot of connections in the UAP community and the DMT community. And so he got us connected with Dr. Andrew McGallimore, who's probably the leading scientist. He's a computational neuroscientist out of Japan. He's the one who worked with Rick Strassman to create the DMT.
Okay, that's actually the first thing I've heard that actually is a field I recognize, computational neuroscientist.
TX studies with Imperial College in London. They did the extended state DMT studies where they intravenously and gave it to patients, and to completely extend, instead of 5 minutes, they could stay 30 minutes or an hour. And they started doing MRI scans and all sorts of studies with it as a part of that. And so he's right now the biggest name in DMT, but he has also been talking about this connection. He feels that it really explains the simulation theory that a lot of people have.
That's what. Okay.
And so
this is really what I wanted to get to here, the simulation theory. For those of you who don't know what simulation theory is the idea essentially that we all live in the Matrix. A lot of people argue over this and try to debunk it. Usually philosophers say it doesn't really matter, because even if you're living in a simulation, you have to obey the rules of that simulation. The simulation is your reality.
He was able to get us connected with Dr. Bernard Carr, who's an astrophysicist that trained with Stephen Hawking, one of the leading astrophysicists in the world. And so they had some time to review our math, and it was dimensionally consistent, but he felt like that there were...
Your math is dimensionally consistent. What type of math are you doing? I mean, dimensions do matter to certain types of math, like linear matrix algebra, but I don't think you understand the words you're using.
There's an issue with some of their current understandings of physics. And at that time, it felt like a little bit of a rug pull. But what we've come to understand...
So because this person has an issue with some sort of physics, you're going to bring in Terrence Howard, who believes in the electromagnetic universe and once told Joe Rogan that the sun poops out planets. I mean, I don't want to fault Terrence Howard for having what appears to be a mental episode, but he is not a physicist, and you shouldn't take his ideas about physics seriously.
And there's a reason why it doesn't make sense to traditional physics, and I'll explain that here in a little bit. But Since then, we reached out to other physicists because we started realizing that the connection was
Great. If you're on my YouTube channel and watching this later, please take a minute to like, comment, and subscribe.
really about consciousness itself. So like Dr. Federico Fagin and others. But what we run into is that when we start explaining where this information comes from, it really throws traditional scientists through a loop, and it's almost like it doesn't compute. And so
in other words, everyone you've shown this to who actually knows what they're talking about tells you this isn't real. And because it isn't real, you must be onto something. I really wish conspiracy theorists would get the idea that science is not rejecting their ideas because they're revolutionary most of the time. Yes, it is possible you can be wrong and everyone else is right. And that's the most common one. A lot of you think it's a lot more common for you to be right and everyone else to be wrong. Everyone who was right when everyone else thought they was wrong had to go through a great fight for that, and it took usually centuries. Galileo didn't even get an apology from the Catholic Church until 300 years after his death. Even today, we have tons of people saying evolution isn't a thing, even though we know evolution happens simply for religious beliefs. It takes time to get bad ideas out of public consciousness, and it doesn't help when we have everyone thinking that there's some sort of grand science conspiracy when there just isn't. Science is rigorous and disciplined. Not everyone can be a scientist, but a lot of people have realized if they go on podcasts and similar venues, they can make a name for themselves just by spouting bizarre conspiracy theories. And don't get me wrong, I did enjoy the Art Bell show when that was a thing. But I knew that no one on the Art Bell show was to be taken all that seriously. Even Art Bell knew what he was doing was entertainment.
Around February, I started getting guidance that I was supposed to go on a 40-day water-only fast. The moment it started giving me a hard time about the things that I was eating and putting in my body. I would get visions of giant coolers full of food just being dumped over. And then so I'm starting to clean up my health. And so I'd been vaping at the time. I'd stopped.
You shouldn't need to take DMT to get visions to tell you to stop vaping. While I do believe vaping is more healthy than cigarette smoking, even when we didn't know that much about it, I wasn't convinced it was that much healthier. Just that it was a healthier option for some people and might be a way to step down from actual nicotine.
Doing that, and when I stopped, which I didn't like, and so I started taking those semaglutides, I started taking Wegovy, and so I took a shot of it, and the moment I did that next time I went in on a DMT experience, I could feel the being inside of me move to where that injection point was. And it was then giving me a hard time about taking it. And so I stopped doing that. I dealt with some injuries in the military as well. I had a traumatic arm injury. I'd lost a lot of the function in two of my fingers.
Okay, this guy is much like me on these streams and all over the place. He's doing a stream of consciousness, which can be good in some places, especially if you're doing a novel, but you're kind of meandering, and I think you probably should have written down what we wanted to talk about and maybe done some notes so you could do what's known as extemporaneous speaking, because you would be a lot more coherent if you could do that. I don't know the name of this person. Apparently this person's name is Brad Yoakum, now that I can see it.
It severed a nerve. I'd had 4 surgeries. I've got a significant scar. I had a significant range of motion issues. It's a large part of my disability rating from the military. But that being grabbed a nerve in my shoulder blade, and I was in extreme pain for 4 weeks. But the moment that it released, since 2008, I had not been able to feel my ring finger or my pinky finger. I could feel those complete.
Okay, I feel sorry for you, but can you please get to the point? Because you were talking about how DMT gave you visions for a 40-day fast. We don't really care about your history right now.
And all of my range of motion completely was restored.
There we go. See, start with that.
I had X-rays done recently.
And while if you're on YouTube, you can see this. You can't see in Clapper. There are 3 people on a podcast here, video podcast, and the guy at the bottom looks like he's nodding off at this point. It's like, yeah, this is so exciting, and then does the head bob thing.
I have a lot of medical history because of this, and being in the military, I've got documentation about all of the issues that I had. But what was interesting is there's this little piece of metal now that's just in my forearm, which there's no evidence of it ever being there. We haven't quite messed with it yet, just because everything that we're dealing with is really significant. So I started going this 40-day water only fast, and I started posting a little bit of my story every day on TikTok. And so as I'm going through that, it was hard, but my body started really, once your body goes into that phase, it starts to cannibalize itself, but it cannibalizes the damaged parts of you first. And so it's a lot about
I don't think that's true.
Getting all this junk out of your system. It's like,
honestly, I have no idea how to double check that quickly, but I'm pretty sure the body, if you go on a fast, does not get rid of the damaged parts of you first. I'm pretty sure the body gets rid of fat from various parts of your body first. Because your body if you go long enough and your body starts eating things that aren't fat, that's pretty far into starvation.
Legitimately a complete reset. But as I'm going through this, we had been taught these equations, kind of how the universe works. And there's also my colleague.
Can you please stop throwing out the word equations without giving us some? That is really irritating.
Had channeled all of this information, and in one sitting, it ended up being 138 pages, and it's completely he's sitting there typing for 8 hours, and it's his partner says she's never seen him ever type that fast. He's even as he's typing, he's telling the guides, please slow down. And so he's just typing all of this information out. It is how our universe works. It is the universal laws of how to navigate.
Okay, so a guy had essentially a mushroom trip, had some amazing insight, and wrote it all down. Great. But telling us he had this amazing insight and wrote it all down isn't really the amazing thing you think it is. A lot of people get high and write things down. They think they're amazing things when they're high. Often when they go back to them, they realize they weren't that good. Now, I'm sure there are pieces of art where we're all grateful that someone got high, otherwise we wouldn't enjoy them. There are several Beatles albums that I'm sure would not exist if the band had not had its drug phase. And despite what many people think, Pink Floyd was not as drug-addled as when making its music as some people think. Another good example of art that we would not have if the band hadn't gotten high is Led Zeppelin's Stairway to Heaven. But if you ask Led Zeppelin now what the song means, they'll tell you, we were so high at the time that we don't remember what it means. And honestly, a lot of people spark debate about what Stairway to Heaven means. And of course, we could take the BoJack Horseman line, spoken by Todd Chavez at the end, where isn't art more about what people get out of it than what the artist puts into it? And whether or not, I'm rambling myself. Let's get back to this podcast.
Through balance and the laws of light, energy, the laws of dark wisdom, which I've been teaching lately on my TikTok.
The laws of dark wisdom? Apparently, this Brad Yoakum character has a TikTok.
But it's basically a guidebook of how to navigate this experience, which was fascinating. And so, but one of the things that they had asked me to do during this was has anyone been able to figure out everything that you know about the universe? Has anyone been able to figure out that before?
Everything I know about the universe? Yes, in fact, I figured out literally everything I know about the universe. Did you think about that question before you asked it?
And so I started doing a bunch of
Now, if you mean everything we know about the universe, that's an entirely different question and probably what you meant.
research, trying to figure out, okay, these are the things that we know of how this works.
Can I just
We
jump
could-
in with one quick question? It might tie in with what you're going to say. Could DMT be used by maybe the gatekeepers, the CIA and stuff? As a can it
Could DMT be used by the gatekeepers such as the CIA? Have you ever read any history of some of the stuff the CIA has done? Absolutely yes. The CIA can use drugs and hallucinogenics, usually for nefarious purposes.
Can you train yourself to have a certain experience in DMT, or is it just totally random? You get told that when you go into the DMT world, you can't control it. Is there a way?
There is no DMT world. It's really just a hallucinogen. There's no world. It's in your brain. It's always in your brain.
Potentially someone's been able to control this.
Yes, some people are gifted and can control it. There are other gifts that are inherent with people, especially like with the Stargate program. The people that can remote view and do all of that are naturally gifted.
However, when remote viewing has been tested with peer-reviewed double-blind studies, it has not been all that productive. In fact, it's shown to be pretty much false.
What we have found is that if you combine those gifts with DMT, it extremely enhances it.
So if you think you're psychic, take DMT and you'll think you're even more psychic. Got it.
Now, whether they use that or not, I don't know. They may not. I know that other people may have been able to hit that point of gnosis unknowingly. For like Danny, when he explains it,
they've hit that point of gnosis unknowingly. Yeah, I often think I know what. Well, I can't say I personally do it because I haven't taken that many drugs, if any, that weren't prescription drugs. But I can say I am pretty sure people often are convinced they have knowledge they don't really have when they take drugs.
This story, if you were to see the DMT laser experiment, it is not something anybody would happenstance be able to figure out on their own. And so through a series of synchronicity,
Anybody with happenstance will be able to figure out on their own. I understand you might be nervous, but this is why I suggested you write something down, because nothing in that sentence made any sense.
And guidance, he was able to realize that he needed to do that, but he also, one of the beings showed him how to play a song on the guitar. And so
all right, you heard that guy say it. If you want to learn to play the guitar, you need to take DMT. That's a new one.
But that
Will they teach me how to play the mandolin too? I need to finish to learn how to play that instrument.
moment for him was the moment that he realized, like, wait, no, they're giving me actionable information that is functional in this reality. And this is completely outside of him. And so that was his point of gnosis. He didn't quite understand it. Other people had been able to hit this. I think we were maybe the first ones to understand what the cause is and what induces it. And so we've been getting some information like, okay, the Emerald Tablets of Thoth. Are you familiar with those at all?
Yes.
The Emerald Tablets
Okay.
of Thoth are... I almost said they're not real. They are a real thing, but I believe they're not what most people think they are.
We got information that those were going to be important. I'd never even heard of them. None of us had ever heard of them. So we start looking into that story and learning all about all of that. And so as I'm learning and trying to figure all this out, I could find tenets of what we knew in certain religions or physicists and theories, but only one group had all of the right answers that we had, and it was the Rosicrucians. And so it was a mystery school. Like, a lot of people don't know much about them. And so, but the question then started being, why do they know the answers hundreds of years ago?
Or they didn't, and you just think they agree with, or they just happen to agree with your answers. Or they think they agree with your answers because you've been on too many mushrooms. I am not saying there is anything wrong with taking mushrooms if it can benefit you, because I do believe there are studies using DMT to treat certain mental illnesses. But you're not going to gain magical powers by taking mushrooms, at least after you come down off that high. I don't know if DMT is like LSD, where it will stay in the body and sometimes get released, and you can hallucinate years after taking LSD. But I can also tell you that if DMT is telling you need to contact Terrence Howard to get his technology, maybe you should stop taking DMT and learn a little more about math, science, and physics.
And so I ended up joining the Rosicrucians, but
Are the Rosicrucians still around? I have no idea. I know it's one of those conspiracy theorist groups. But I thought they went the way of the Knights Templar a long time ago.
I'll tell you some of the information that's publicly available that just for people really have just kind of glossed over and have not paid attention to. But they're the keepers. Like they've started in the 1600s, but that's just the Rosicrucian portion. It had evolved into that. Before that, they have all the records of the Essenes, which is a mystical group around the times of Jesus. And then also, they also have all the records, they're exhaustive, of the Great White Brotherhood, which is a mystical group, which have been the parent group from Giza.
Okay, I wish he added more context to this, because I am thinking something else when he says that.
For the Essenes. And so they no joke have been holding on to the missing lives of Jesus, like all of the portions that are not in the Bible. And what is in there is this
the
really
missing life
mystical
of Jesus. Okay.
And it explains so much more of how all of that connects to these bigger pictures. But
my favorite part of the missing life of Jesus is when Jesus tells Joseph, "You can't tell me what to do. You're not my real dad."
Everything is guided by synchronicities on a lot of the stuff. So as I'm even looking into the Rosicrucians, they started the very first video, they talk about a bunch of Egyptian stuff, and then there's both, and they start talking about the Emerald Tablets, and it's almost like a signal, like, okay, I'm on the right path. And so
I'm getting tired.
If you're familiar with his Thoth story, it's that he was a part of Atlantis as a record keeper of Atlantis at the fall of Atlantis.
So now you are recycling spirit science garbage from Nassim Haramein. Okay.
He goes to the land of Kem, which is modern day Egypt, and he says that he builds the pyramids, and that there's this underground chamber called the Halls of Amenti. There's also in the early 1920s, there was a guy
which maybe they've just found. We don't know yet. Maybe they found.
Yeah, I'll get there. Yeah, so Maurice,
you're certainly taking your time to get there.
Dorial in the 1920s was living in America. He was a Rosicrucian. He started having these visions in his dreams.
Oh, and the Rosicrucians are still around.
Dreams that he needed to go to Mexico, and that he would find the actual Emerald Tablets that had been missing. And so he, on a whim, goes.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the actual Emerald Tablets that he's talking about don't exist. Let me look that up, because this is some information I don't really care about for the most part, because most of the people going on about Emerald Tablets are people not to be taken seriously. Let's see what Wikipedia has to say about them for a second, if I can find it. All right, the Emerald Tablet, also known as the Smaragdine Table, is a compact encrypted text traditionally attributed to the legendary Hellenistic figure Hermes Trismegistus. I can't pronounce that, apparently. The earliest known versions are 4 Arabic recensions preserved in mystical alchemical treatises between the 8th and 10th century. So they're not from Egypt. Looks like they probably originated in the Arabic world during the golden age of Islam.
Down there and legitimately finds them exactly where in his visions that they said that he would find them. He collects them and takes them back to but it's interesting. They said that it's an underground chamber at the Temple of Quetzalcoatl, which is real interesting because currently they don't know that exists.
So there is no way any Arabic text told anyone about an Arabic chamber in Mexico in the Temple of Quetzalcoatl, because the European and Asian world at the time knew nothing about the Americas until the late 15th century. They didn't even know they existed. Yes, there are a lot of stories about maybe certain powers reached the Americas before that time. We know the Vikings tried to set up colonies here, but whether that knowledge became common beyond Viking lands is unknown. We also know the Vikings did not successfully set up their settlements for the most part. And yeah, I would probably have to go back and correct that. Keep in mind, I'm not an archaeologist or a historian. Please go double check everything I say about history.
I start talking,
or anything else I say for that matter.
Talking about this stuff on my TikTok and the things that I'm learning. The Rosicrucians have been also protecting the information of the Real Story of Mary Magdalene.
All right, so I am getting tired. I have had a long week. If you are on YouTube, please like, comment, and subscribe. For those coming in and out on my Clapper account, I don't know if I'm going to do things this way again because I don't think it worked very well. Just hit that follow button. Have a good night, everyone, and go out and write some code.